I'm under grace is not a biblical excuse to live in sin. And yet that's exactly how antinomianism shows up in the church. Now, the word antinomianism comes from two Greek words, anti meaning against and nomos meaning law. So it literally means against the law. Now, theologically, antinomianism is the belief that there is no moral laws God expects Christians to obey today. Now, it takes a true biblical teaching and it pushes it to an unbiblical conclusion. The Bible does teach that we are not saved by keeping the old law. Romans 10:4 says, Christ is the accumulation of the law so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. Galatians 3:23 through 25 explains that the law was a guardian until Christ came. Ephesians 2:15 tells us that Jesus fulfilled the law through his death. But here's where antinomianism goes wrong. It assumes that because we are saved by grace, obedience no longer matters. But Paul directly confronts this false belief in Romans 6:1 through 2. Shall we go on sinning so that grace may increase? By no means. We died to sin. How can we live in it any longer? You see, grace does not mean that sin is okay. True grace produces repentance. If somebody says, I'm forgiven so I can live however I want, that's not somebody living in grace. That's somebody who has a perverted misunderstanding of salvation. Romans 5:8 says Christ died for us while we were still sinners. And John 3:16 says salvation is God's gift. And because salvation is a gift, our response should be gratitude, not rebellion. Romans 12:1 through 2 says we are to offer our lives as a living sacrifice. Now, does God expect Christians to obey the law? Yes, but not the Old Testament law. We are under a new law of Christ. 1 John 5:3 says, this is his love for God, to obey his commands, and his commands are not burdensome. Jesus defined the law of Christ very clearly in Matthew 22, verse 37 through 40. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the law of Christ. It's not a checklist, but a transformed heart.